Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron,
And I'm Brett.
and you're listening to The Last Alliance, a Rings of Power podcast.
We know it's a dangerous business going out your door, or when choosing a podcast, but we're glad you've joined our adventure as we discuss The Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
And so it begins.
Well, Meekum, it is 4:30 in the a.m. here, which means it is 5:30 in the a.m. chez toi.
When they said it was being released on August 29th, they weren't joking.
Yeah, so to give everyone a little bit of what we've been going through the last few hours, we started off right on time, religiously at midnight, sharp, right?
That's correct.
We got through episode 1, and then took a quick bathroom break to come back to episode 2.
That was our problem.
That was our problem. And all of a sudden, Amazon and all of its servers decided to, I don't know, they got some kind of a bug in them, something.
Probably one of those leeches that Nori and the stranger were eating.
Absolutely. Put the old HDMI plug in the laptop to still watch it on the TV, so it was 98% good situation. So
Yeah.
I was just glad that we got to finish it out, because I was like, we stayed up this long and we've already got one episode down. So I was like, I'd really like to finish this, but now here we are, like I said, 4:30 in the morning, 5:30 for you. It's
And to add on top of all of that, Matt, who's got quite a long commute here in about an hour, he's turned over the reins of this recording session to us. So we're running on no sleep and we're running the tech. So who knows?
So
All that being said, thanks for
yeah.
joining us. Welcome back. We finally made it. We're so thrilled with the response to the podcast so far. Thank you to all those who have liked, commented, shared, rated, expressed their support. We can't wait to share the next couple weeks with you. Spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about all 3 episodes that were released this morning. Please make sure that you go and watch each episode before listening in, just to make sure you avoid any potential spoilers.
And hopefully we cleared out all the bugs for you guys, so when you go to watch it later today, you can watch it in peace.
Amen to that.
All right, Brett, you wanna... Oh, wait, I want to say something real quick about the social media started to do recently. I think it's a pretty good thing. So if you guys want to find us on Instagram, it's Last Alliance Podcast, right? I think that we're putting out actually quite a bit of good content. Like, it's a one-stop shop, it seems, for everything that Amazon is putting out, everything that, we're putting out. So it's just a good follow as far as social media goes for Rings of Power Season 2. So go ahead and give us a follow there, like Brett said. And then, yeah, you want to dive in? We'll get going with our good, bad, and great right away.
Yeah, let's do it. And just as a reminder, we're framing these reviews as our instant reactions, right? This isn't going to be a deep dive in each episode. We're not going to touch on everything, but we do want to highlight our good, bad, and greats. Maybe check in on our bold predictions that we identified from our last episode, and leave you with our quotes of the week.
For sure.
And then
and if you guys submit questions in between podcast episodes or between, episodes airing live, we'll try and answer those in the following episode, right? Like if you do want some kind of a deep dive or answer to something, we'll definitely do that, and then give the instant reaction to the next week's episode. All right, so Brett, you want to start us off with your good, bad, and great?
Okay, I'll start. There was a lot. Like we said, 3 episodes, 3.5 hours. And so it's like watching one of the Peter Jackson extended editions. So I've got a couple of goods, but I think you're going to touch on them as well. So I'll just start with, there was a strong theme of humility across each of the episodes, and different characters may be struggling with that humility. And what place does humility have in Middle Earth in this fight against the spreading darkness? We've got Galadriel, who I thought season 2 was gonna be the avenging tour of Galadriel making up for her mistakes. Well, she shows that she just continues to be hard-nosed and too proud for her own good. Can't really see the darkness that is still in her. We've got Elrond, who's really struggling to recognize that there might be some morally gray area to navigate here, and he just cannot, for the life of him, reconcile the fact that there might be a greater good served by using the rings. We've got Durin and Durin, who will not apologize. There's zero humility for most of the first 2 episodes. We finally see Durin the Fourth, the son, come and apologize and have that honest heart-to-heart conversation with his father. And then we've got Muriel and Farazan and their discussion about, what is right for the direction of Numenor going forward. Yeah, Muriel's easy to cheer for, but, a third-person objective point of view might say, she's pretty vulnerable right now. She kind of led a failed mission. Numenor is not trending upward. Maybe the humility and the nice, leader isn't what they need right now. So I think there's a lot of good commentary about humility, and it was fun to see that going on throughout the show. Also, some comments about Celebrimbor and Cirdan, and the contrast between those two elves, but maybe I can get into that a little later.
I do like you started out with the humility discussion, though, because that will wrap right into our quote at the end of the show. So that'll be good to have a callback to that. But I agree with you. There's a lack of humility in about every storyline thus far.
And interesting in the show about the Rings of Power, that they kind of start off with this commentary on, well, there's a place for humility too.
Right. Yeah, what's your contrast between Celebrimbor and Cirdan?
I learned a little bit more about Cirdan this last week, and it was this really inspiring just commentary on his life. He's one of the oldest elves in Middle-earth, and he has no greater desire. Well, he has one greater desire. One of his greatest desires is to return to Valinor and be with the Valar, be with the gods. However, he is put on assignment by the Valar to use his gifts and his craftsmanship to manage the passage of other elves through the ships that he builds and crafts to perfection. And for centuries and ages, he mans the post that he's been given by the Valar to help the elves get back to Valinor. And he's literally one of the very last ones to go.
Yeah, he's one of very few elves who have been around from the beginning in Middle-earth till the very end.
Yeah. Contrast that with Celebrimbor, who is also a master of his craft, but gets so consumed by his desire to build something great and be recognized by others and achieve his dreams and fulfill this great destiny that he's laid out for himself, that the power that comes through selflessness really comes through, and that's what opens the door to being manipulated by Anatar.
I like that. Did you have... So that was all part of your good, right? Do you want to go through the rest of yours, or do you want me to do my good real quick?
Jump into your good. Let's go back and forth.
Okay. My good is... I kind of brought up a little bit the dilemma that Elrond is dealing with right now, but I kind of enjoyed watching both Elrond and Prince Durin kind of be able to recognize and then stand up for their opinion on, what their internal compass was telling them was, the right way, or what was fishy, or what they questioned. To your point, yeah, part of you is asking, like, why can't Elrond see that it's going to help in the long run? But also part of you is like, he's the only one, even admitting to the fact that these things could be all part of Sauron's plan to begin with. And he's also not wrong. Like, were they made exactly the way Sauron wanted them made? No. But are they still subject to the One Ring in the end? Yes. And are the elves able to use them while the One Ring is being used by Sauron? No. And so in that way, Elrond was right. But like Cirdan pointed out, they are essential for us now. So anyway, I just liked how both Prince Durin and Elrond both were kind of able to recognize the fishiness and declare and stand up for what seemed to be an unpopular opinion, at especially Elrond, like defying the king at great risk to themselves, right?
Yeah. And Galadriel kind of mentioned that to Gil-galad, that Elrond was going to find someone who could maybe talk Gil-galad out of this idea, and I think that was Elrond's intention at first, but kudos to him to listening to Cirdan and his advice of, you are right to fear the power of these rings, but you also have a very close friend in Galadriel, and you shouldn't abandon her. And so kudos to him for maybe calming down a little bit, sticking with his gut. I still think there's probably some room for him to negotiate the dilemma he's dealing with. A note I had for Cirdan, I wrote down, I said, man, I would trust this guy. Like, I was just so pleased with the character so far. He just seems
Same.
like this is what I picture when I'm thinking of a wise, experienced, seasoned elf.
Indeed. In fact, Cirdan by himself was almost my good, so.
That would have been a great good.
Yeah. I'll do my bad real quick, and then we can go over to yours. So,
Okay.
my bad, and I have a feeling this is going to be a theme throughout the rest of the show, and I probably just need to get over it to be able to enjoy the rest of the show. But kind of along the lines of what you're saying, have you thought this was going to be Galadriel's comeback tour? For me, I was hoping that they would stop what they've been doing in the first season of painting Galadriel as this, if not inferior, then peer to all of these lower elves, right? Like, she is not. She's a princess of the Noldor. She's the daughter of, one of the daughters of Finarfin, right? And her brother was a king of the Noldor. So it's like, this is not some petty general, So I just don't like how this elf that is really supposed to be, one of the most influential and powerful beings in Middle-earth at this time, is painted as, one of a handful of no-name generals at or below the level of Elrond, bested by random elven guards, on her way to Lindon chasing Elrond down. I'm just not a fan of that whole dilution of who she is, right?
Yeah, she's been knocked down these first 3 episodes. She's taken her tongue lashings from her peers, it seems like. I'm hopeful that throughout this season we see some positive character development to help get her on her way to becoming, one of the wisest, most measured leaders. And it's hard, right? Like, she has a ring. She's considered,
but it almost made it look like she took it for herself instead of was the
Ooh,
obvious choice to give it to,
interesting.
you know?
Yeah.
So, and I was surprised that Cirdan just walked up with it, like on his hand.
He'd been playing around. He's like, hold the phone.
Yeah. Speaking of, real quick, to get off track a little bit, and then I'll get back to my other half of my bad. With Cirdan, when the ocean kind of made a splash, what did you think about that?
I thought of Moana. You ever watch Moana and the ocean spitting the rock back up at her? That's
I have.
exactly what I thought. I was like, okay, the ocean is now an animate being. It's just spitting the rings back up into Kieran's hand. That was a little rough for me.
Well, you remember that Cirdan has well, I don't know if tight connection or close connection is the right term, but I'll use it anyway. Has a close connection to Ulmo, right? The Vala who is in charge of the seas and the ocean, right?
Yep.
And the impression I get anyway is that they converse back and forth. Like, I think he is the main Valar to communicate with Cirdan about, like, hey, here's what to look out for. Hey, here's what, you should do to help these people in Middle Earth. And so it kind of made me wonder, like, was that, Ulmo talking to Cirdan and saying, hey, actually, let's not toss these rings?
It was clear that there was a higher power at work, and it didn't seem to be an evil one. Kind of adding legitimacy to this idea of, like you said, right now the rings are necessary.
Anyway, the second half of my bad is Celebrimbor. Same reasons I've already discussed of, was he deceived? Yes, but I think because of this inverse timeline that they are doing where the 3 elven rings are made first and then all the rest of them are made, you have to paint him as an idiot, a gullible idiot. And I'm just saying that relative to what you would expect from a chief smith of the elves, right? And it's just not the case. And yet again, same thing as Gladriel, right? It's this watering down, somewhat false portrayal of who these characters are. And I'm not about it, but I probably just need to get over it because they're obviously not going to change course on that.
I totally get where you're coming from. I would say that I've enjoyed watching him so far this season, knowing what his ultimate fate is, and knowing just from all the trailers and all the promos, the suffering, looks like the mental anguish he's going to be going through. I do feel bad for the guy, and I'm looking forward to seeing how those emotions are drawn out over the course of the season.
All right, what's your bad?
So my bad, I've called character development for some of these. Let me start with Disa. When we left Disa in season 1, she had the fire in her eyes. She was going to go get the crown and pry it off her father-in-law's dead head if he wasn't going to give it to her husband. And it seems like we just started this season with, she's not a nice, calm, supportive wife who still has a good relationship with her father. Like, where in the world did that come from? We backtrack. I thought, I'm going to still stick with my bold prediction that she's going to lose it at some point.
I was
And,
going to say, let's talk about why this is really a bad for you because it's not playing into your bold prediction right
it
now.
was a rough week for my bold predictions. We'll get to
Oh,
that.
well, that was honestly almost my other good is
That my bold predictions are really struggling.
yeah, old Waldrig the Magnificent is no longer with us.
Huge failure on the part of the writers.
I will somewhat disagree with you on Disa though, because I actually am enjoying the path that she is taking because I too thought that she was going to go down the road that you were describing, and it was probably just you that had convinced me of it.
Thank you.
But I'm enjoying that. I guess a way to say it is there's just a lot of character corruption going on all around. So if I can see that she might actually be the one to maybe save her husband from the corruption that's going to come down through his father, that'd be a great little silver lining to me.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Two other points real fast. The stranger, the first couple scenes with him, it's this annoying little commentary on, like, guess my name. And I'm just like, what are they doing? Like, here we are, we're still playing this game of who is the stranger. And the line of, oh, one day you'll learn your name. It's not Diedrich or Justin or Broderick. And I'm just like, ugh, just give it a break. Then they throw out a line. Nori says, like, oh, he needs his Gand. And Gand is an old English word for a staff or a walking stick. And you match that up with Alf, which is a Norse mythology word for a mystical being like an elf. I'm like, okay, are they trying to lead us? Like, what are they doing? I'm sick of it.
And not only that, but I'm pretty sure that when he was having his vision of that cane staff thing, I think that it kept switching back and forth between that shepherd's hook looking thing and the Gandalf the Grey's staff.
Yes.
Like wizard staff.
Yeah.
So another call out to Gandalf, right?
But is it? I mean, then why not just say it? Like, if we're all picking up on these things, why not just say it? Nori says, one day you'll learn your name. I said literally out loud to myself, yeah, probably at the end of season 4, the rate this is going.
4 or 5.
And then last thing, let us all take a moment of silence for Waldrig the Magnificent. I don't understand why we had to have a 5-minute funeral pyre scene for Bronwyn, who we did not care about. We should have had a 5-minute memorial for Waldrig.
He's a survivor.
And you know what? I'm going to hold on to it. I did not see a dead body. Until I see a dead body, or Sauron starts feeding his dead bones to that dog again, I will hold out hope that he's...
Sauron did smile when he heard the dog in the background as he was leaving.
It was a pretty cool scene.
Yeah.
It was fun to watch, besides the fact that it was my favorite character.
But yeah, there goes, I guess, half of your first bold prediction, right? So
I'm holding on to it.
All right, you hold on to it. But for the rest of us, as of episode 1, Brett's batting 500. What's your great?
My great was the first couple scenes of this new season. Sauron's backstory with Adar and the orcs brutally killing him. I mean, I'm not usually a fan for brutality and gore and stuff, but that, talk about a contrast from how season 1 started. It just felt like a real drag. This season got off with a bang. And I particularly loved the way they represented Sauron regaining his essence over, thousands of years. I think it was more of a symbolic representation with all the black stuff just gnawing away at any piece of life it could get its claws on and just slowly getting back into a human form. I thought it was fascinating, and I'd love to watch it again.
I agree. It was good, and yeah, just this black muck that's crawling out of the depths of this nasty cave.
Perfect symbol of evil and just destruction and...
Yeah, not the typical, okay, I gotta go back to Valinor and get repersoned by the Valar,
What about you? You're great.
I think we all know what my grade is. If you missed it, it's the scene where Nori and Poppy both get taken to the land of Oz in the Great Tornado. So
they'll be having a new song to sing with their walking song. They can sing along the yellow brick road their wandering days.
Exactly. And hey, they can sing. So far, their song has been the best song of the show. So I'm about it. But that's about all I'm about.
What did you think about their Wandering Day song that they kind of brought back for a curtain call?
I actually thought that was like how they used it to navigate the desert. I thought that was a cool use of it for sure.
I would have liked to see him play with that a little bit more, like maybe extend it over a couple episodes and, show the scenery more and let the audience have a chance to maybe figure that out themselves. We got like 2 minutes to try and guess that was going to happen, and then they kind of revealed it. And it was fun, but it was too quick, I think.
Well, that kind of ties into my actual great, which was as much as I have frustrations with the warping of timelines and, proper character, who they are really as far as Galadriel and Celebrimbor go. I'm really enjoying that they are, delving into pieces of Tolkien's literature that are not very well known and might not even be well explained, but are trying to, carve out and iron out a storyline there, and I'm enjoying that. Like the storyline with the stranger, I think it's gonna actually be pretty good. In season 1, not a fan because the stranger hardly ever spoke. You knew absolutely nothing about him. The mystics that came to hunt him down were horrible actors, in my opinion, and I just didn't like it that much. But now that he's speaking, he's no longer mute. He's trying to get into his powers. We know Tom Bombadil is going to be there to coach him along in the coming episodes. We're going to learn a lot more about Rune, which I don't think anyone really knows a whole lot about besides, the Blue Wizards and Sauron connection. But other than that, I don't think anyone really knows anything about it. So, like I said, I'm liking that they're bringing out, different areas in Middle-earth that are not super talked about and well known, and even creatures, right? Because they didn't really show them, but I think it's pretty fair to assume that the entities who rescued Theo from that group around the fire are probably the Ents, right?
Yeah.
And we know from the previews that there's going to be Ent wives. So, I'm glad that they're taking liberty of some of those things. I just hope that and so far they've done a pretty good job, but I just hope that they don't ruin what is an awesome universe in, Tolkien land.
Let's visit our bold predictions. Let's just make sure we're updated on those, and then maybe we can get into any other miscellaneous things we want to talk about. Like we said, 3.5 hours worth of content. There's probably a lot of things. If there's anything that we miss, let us know, and we can address next episode anything that you thought was particularly cool. Bold predictions. Stilson, I'm going to give you a bonus one. You messaged the group during the week with a good bold prediction that you did.
Yes.
That we should have included last time. You want to update us on what that is?
Yeah, and I was just having a hard time thinking about what my bold predictions were actually going to be when we did that last week, and I've been thinking this for quite a while, and I think I even may have mentioned it in an episode of season 1, but I think that Elendil and Muriel are going to have some kind of a behind-the-scenes love affair. Spoiler alert, as far as the text goes, Muriel is... The traditional way that Pharazôn becomes king is Muriel is kind of forced into a marriage with him, and that's how he becomes the king of Numenor, right?
We kind of saw a creepy scene of him in her bedroom, like, here's your robes, which one you gonna wear? Like,
yes.
I wonder if we're gonna see a little more of that too.
But I do think that Elendil and Muriel may not get married, but I do think they're going to have a little love affair. So
we'll hold on to that bold prediction. We'll give you credit for it, and I think that one's stacking up quite nicely.
Yeah.
Your other bold predictions were your first one was that the friendship between Elrond and Durin would endure. Did we even see? There was what Anatar kind of made up on the spot about what
Yeah.
Elrond had said, but we didn't have any other interactions between the two of them, right?
No, but even in that interaction, Durin did stay faithful to his idea of Elrond, if not Elrond himself.
True.
So far, so good.
There you go. Good. And then Aarion as a future Nazgul.
She's also looking good going down that route.
She is got a flair for the dramatic.
Yeah, basically because of her, the Muriel did not get crowned today.
That's right. And she's now an avid user of the Palantir, which I'm guessing at some point we'll see that will have a connection to Sauron by the end of the show.
I'm sure.
I think that one's shaping up pretty nicely. So, Matt, walk us through your predictions and how they're holding up.
Right. So my main prediction is that the stranger is actually Gandalf the Blue. And to explain my whole reasoning behind this, I think one of the final episode won't be the battle at Mount Doom. The final episode will be showing the aftermath of that battle. We'll see things like Isildur getting shot in the back from orc arrows and the ring falling out of his hand. Then we'll see Elrond picking up and putting on Gil-galad's ring and returning to Rivendell. Galadriel will put on her ring and she'll head back to Lothlorien. And then for Gandalf, we'll see Gandalf coming back on a ship into the Grey Havens, and we'll see him meeting Cirdan. And Cirdan will give Gandalf his ring. And then most importantly, I think we will see a repeat of the flashback that we saw in episode 1. We'll see that trickle of blood from Sauron creeping its way over to Barad-dûr or some other place in Mordor to start all over again. I think that was a bit of a foreshadowing of what the final scene is going to be for the whole series.
So, what do you think about Matt's predictions?
Gandalf the Blue, this idea that I like it. I think it could happen. We've already got precedent of Gandalf the Grey graduating to become Gandalf the White, right? So it's not a totally absurd idea. And
I thought that too when it was shifting between staffs in his vision. I thought, oh, maybe the shepherd's hook is the blue version, and he's also seeing the Gandalf the Grey version, but then why wouldn't he also see the Gandalf the White version? I don't know.
Matt's other bold prediction was that Kemen would become a Nazgul, and right now my impression of Kemen in this season is just kind of like spoiled brat status. Like,
yeah, I think he's gonna die, to be honest.
And I think we'll be happy to see it.
Yep, I agree.
What do you think, Matt?
For Kemen being a Nazgul, my reasoning is Inarion is turning to the dark side, you could say. And when Numenor is destroyed, Kemen is gonna survive, but Inarion is gonna die. And I kind of think Kemen has some feelings for Inarion. And so once he and the rest of the faithful get to Numenor, he's going to have this bitter hatred in his heart for Elendil and Isildur, and that they couldn't save her. They couldn't save their sister and daughter. And so I think that's kind of what motivates him and turns him into a Nazgul. So I think we're on a good path for that.
So the jury's still out on Waldrig for me as King of the Dead. He may very well be the king of the dead people in this show.
Yeah, Brett, really, you're the only one whose bold predictions are already tracking south. So
they're not looking good. Theo's got a lot of hate and anger in him. He's got some serious orphan issues, including some daddy issues.
He does.
I see a lot of strong Anakin Skywalker vibes in Theo, which makes me think Witch King, for sure.
Well, it's not impossible. We
It's not
shall see.
impossible. Is Theo's dad a big deal? We got another line about, did you know my dad? Well, neither did I.
And I know it's not. Basically, the gist was, you're not my dad. Leave me alone.
Is he his dad, though? Is Arondir Theo's dad?
I don't think so. I think that was Theo's way of asking. If he had suspicion, that would have been Theo's way of asking. And I think that Arondir's reaction, if there was something there, would have been a lot more, contemplative and pensive about it. It was a pretty, shocked no.
I don't know what to think. Again, here's something that they're trying to make a big deal out of, and I'm just not sure I get the point of it. Like, Arondir, at the end of the day, is a made-up character who we're not totally invested in, really. I really don't care if he...
I don't know if they
that
are
with
trying to
Theo.
make a big deal out of it. I think Arondir is their token Legolas character. And I think that whole exchange about the father was really just to quit acting like my dad. You're not him.
Okay.
I don't know. And this is just how I took it. I don't know if it's drawing this big question mark on, well, who was Theo's dad? Even though I did ask myself that when that happened, I wonder if it is important who Theo's dad is. But I think at the end, I was just convinced that it was to highlight, you're not my dad, leave me alone.
Right. We'll see. I think they've got something up their sleeve still, just by nature of the fact that they brought up the dad again. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
True, we'll see. All right, let's talk about the coronation a little bit. What were your thoughts on all the things that transpired around the coronation?
I mentioned at the start, as a third-party objective observer, I can understand the frustrations of the people of Numenor with their current heir apparent. And I can understand maybe a change in leadership might be in order. I'm not sure what to think of Farazan's character. Like, he seems slightly wishy-washy still to me. I'd like to see more sinister, more blatant. Like, I know what I'm doing. This is all falling according to plan. But at the end of that episode, it felt and maybe it's because he was shocked himself that the eagle showed up, just like I think most of us were, that the eagle's there cheering him on. What on earth is that about?
So, my opinion is the eagle was not there to cheer him on. I think the eagle was showing up because Muriel was being coronated, and Muriel is one of the faithful. I don't think that the eagle squawking is necessarily a good sign. For instance, before it was very clear that they were having a coup, the eagle just sat there calmly and was just almost in attendance, right? It was only when the coup began that the eagle started getting all excited and ultimately flew off. Although it could, like you said, give the look that the eagle gives his approval for Farazan.
Yeah, and so was it a misdirection? Were we as viewers, supposed to think that the eagle was giving support to Farazan?
It was totally a misdirection. The eagles represent so much goodness. There's no way that they were actually supporting Farazan.
Okay.
No way. Yeah, that's my opinion.
That's what I hope it is.
The rest of the coronation, just to start things off right away, right? And I guess this wasn't really the coronation, but at the funeral of the king, a woman goes up and slaps the queen. I think Muriel made a gross error in judgment by giving that woman a hug. It was in public, at a public ceremony for her father, the king. The woman should have been at least imprisoned, if not lost her hand or her life.
So you did not appreciate the touchy-feely moment.
And no, and I think that to an extent, her empathy because it was, in bad timing, kind of led into Farazan and others thinking we might have a chance. And then, when Aarion walked into the coronation and said, Isildur, right after Muriel got done with her speech about quit being so selfish and think about what's best for our kingdom over yourself and all the people that are already dead and gone, what does Aarion do? Yells out someone who's dead and gone. And proceeds to disrupt the entire coronation, and again, the spark that lit the flame that made it so Muriel is now not going to be queen.
Get some backstory on why we commented on Elendil's approach to parenting Isildur in the first season, but now we get a little bit more backstory that Elendil's wife, Isildur's mom, didn't just drown in the sea, which is always right, but she drowned because Isildur was goofing off and doing what he shouldn't have been doing, and it dragged her out and killed her. So could there be some feelings of I don't know, some hard feelings between Elendil to his own son, and maybe that's why, maybe that's something he's still working with. And Aarion would not know that because Isildur told us nobody else knows that it's my fault that she died.
I think it would be difficult, obviously. If Elendil knows, we don't know if, at least I don't know if Elendil knows that was the case, but if Elendil knows, it would be difficult to forgive Isildur completely, right? But anyway, overall, I thought that the first 3 episodes were awesome. I thought that they did a great job with transitioning between the different storylines. I loved the introduction of Cirdan and his character. That was awesome. It was interesting to me to know that, or to see the transition of Halbrand into Anatar and know that Celebrimbor knows that they are one and the same. I didn't know that was going to happen. Did you?
Yeah, no. And that's something we've been waiting to see since the end of season 1, is how are they going to make that deception work? And I thought Halbrand Sauron was smooth as silk.
Because Celebrimbor knows that Halbrand, Anatar, whoever this being is, he doesn't really care. All he knows is that he's his muse, right? He's the magic touch that makes all of a sudden Celebrimbor's life's work come to life, right? So you could tell from the moment that he came into Eregion and just waited at the stable that Celebrimbor could not divorce himself completely from his one, lifeline to a legacy similar to his grandfather's. And he's just so desperate for that you notice, he didn't even ask him what his name is.
No.
Even after he told him, I'm not Halbrand, and the person I am, Galadriel hated so much that she banished me. And yet after all of that, and knowing that Gil-galad, the High King, also is against Halbrand Anatar, that wants to make the rings, and after all that, Celebrimbor still doesn't even care to know what his name is. And I really don't care who you are, as long as you keep making the magic happen around here.
That's right. It's so much more exciting watching Sauron be out in the open, and we know who he is. Nobody else does. And I think it makes for much more interesting TV. We didn't talk about Sauron's interactions with Adar. What do we think of the new Adar, real fast?
I like him.
I'm a fan. I think it's a smooth and seamless transition from our previous actor. And I loved the scene where Waldra gets, Halbrand to feign, or not feign, but to bow down and swear fealty to Adar. And Sauron
Uh-huh.
kind of changes the wording of the oath a little bit and says, "Yeah, I swear loyalty to the Lord of Mordor as
Yep.
long as I or he shall live."
Yep. And they're one and the same.
And it showed a moment of like Halbrand in a very vulnerable position at the feet of the man who he hates more than anyone in the world, who killed him 1,000 years ago, but he was comfortable to put himself back in that same position. I think it just speaks to Sauron's mastery of deception.
Well, and it goes back to what that old man told Sauron at the beginning of, it might not be the sure path that you were counting on may have crumbled, but there are other paths to still get what you want. And I think he tried the, blunt force initially with the orcs of this is how it's going to be. My way or the highway, get on board or die. Did not work out for him.
No,
And
that's
so
a
I
good point.
think,
I hadn't made that connection.
yeah. And I think now he's willing to, subject himself to some things that he wouldn't have in the first place because he has found that alternate path. Sorry, one more thing. Speaking of, in that initial scene, the flashback of the old Sauron, I thought that was kind of cool to see how a Maya, like, dies or whatever they do, transitions. And I thought it was interesting how they reincorporated that idea of cold accompanying evil magic.
Yes, which I was wrong. I remember saying when we did our episode on the first trailer, I said I do not think that is the Tumno Palace that we saw in the first season. It actually was. So I was
Yeah,
wrong
you're
there.
wrong all over the place, Brett.
This was a rough week for all of my predictions. Yeah. Speaking of which, we do have a fan question that came in this last week. Silson, should we? This one comes from Matt, not Matt, part of our podcast, but a different Matt. He's been following along as he's been reviewing season 1. His question, Silson, I think you might have a better response to this than I did, but his big thing was at the start of season 1, it's this huge deal about returning to Valinor, leaving Middle-earth, going back to the Elves' homeland. His question is, when Elves leave Middle-earth, can they not come back? What's the big deal about leaving?
So something that this show kind of has mixed up, at least in my opinion, is it is not really up to the elves who gets to come and go from Valinor. I guess they can leave, but to be readmitted is kind of by permission of the Valar only, from what I understand. And because of that, yeah, you can go back and forth as many times as you want, as long as the Valar keep letting you back in. So that would be my answer. What do you think, Brett?
My response is, and we'd welcome any corrections. We know there's people out there listening who are like, man, you guys suck. Like,
Yeah.
please correct us. But my thought is the elves initially left Valinor and came to Middle-earth because they wanted to rule and didn't want to continue to be ruled by the Valar.
They felt kind of betrayed that the Valar didn't avenge the Cimmerils being stolen, right?
Right.
So that was Fëanor's big, like, heck no, we're going to go, hell or high water and get those things back.
Right. And Tolkien always wrote the elves as a very proud and kind of highbrowed race. He never shied away from that. So for me, the elves are going back to Valinor, it's almost this like submission to the Valar, saying, "All right, we're back. Things
True.
are pretty good here," and it'd be pretty awkward to then hightail back over again.
True. Good
Matt,
question, though. Good question.
yeah, thank you, Matt, for calling that in. We're out of time. Let's leave with our quotes of the week. We've each picked one.
So, yeah, mine was when Cirdan and Elrond are talking at the brook, that bridge area, while Cirdan is shaving. And Cirdan says, "Judge the work and leave the judgment concerning those who wrought it to the judge who sees all things." And Elrond says, "I don't know if I can," or something like that. And Cirdan continues, "It is called humility, and it is difficult for most, but it is the truest form of sight." I thought that was bomb. I thought that was, and like we've already talked about at the beginning, a major theme of the show so far in season 2, and encapsulated in a great quote by Cirdan. And of course, it would be Cirdan to say such a great thing.
Huge fan of Cirdan. Awesome pick for the quote. Very well done. Mine comes from Nori and the Stranger. Nori's feeling a little homesick, and the Stranger, is encouraging her. You've done hard things before, and Nori says, "This hard's different. This is a different kind of hard," which I just think is such a simple but profound way of expressing so many different situations we've all been in. This hard's different. And the Stranger says, "Well, that which is left behind can sometimes be the heaviest burden to carry." Just a very real moment between two friends who I enjoy watching.
I agree. This one was a little bit longer, but we decided to just do one episode for all 3 episodes that dropped today. So next week should be a bit shorter, and yeah, we look forward to seeing if you guys have any comments, and
hopefully not at 6:30 a.m.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us on The Last Alliance.
Thank you for joining our fellowship on this episode of The Last Alliance, a Rings of Power podcast.
And if you enjoyed this episode even half as well as you should have liked, or liked half of it half as well as it deserved, please subscribe, comment, and share.
We'll see you next time.